Welcome back to the Higher Form Podcast. We're here every week having real conversations with leaders, coaches, and everyday people about what it takes to become your best. We know life will test you, and we're here to share practical tips, tools, and relatable stories to help you build the highest form of your life. This week, we're going to dive into the idea of training in seasons. I think this is the secret to long-term success that most people don't even think about because they just do the same thing every day, every week, every month, all year round, and expect the results to continue to progress.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it today too, but you think of it in terms of athletes, like that's the easiest correlation for people to associate with this kind of topic that we're going to go into, but you're not in season all year long.
Yeah.
And that relates to not only athletes and performance, but like so many other aspects of your life and goals that you have. So we'll kind of connect the dots as we go. But you're not competing all year round. You're not in your peak performance all year round. You have off seasons.
I think that's a big part of why we always relate things to the athletic mindset. Obviously, we both played sports through college, and a lot of our team here at Avexia kind of has the same mindset because they had the same experience. But most people get away from not just the mindset, the physical, like all of the focus around that. And it's interesting how people expect to forever see progress. Like I want to be steadily losing the same amount of weight every week until I get to my goal. And it's just not realistic to have this forever straight line of progress, no matter what context of life you look in.
Yeah, business performance, weight loss.
Yeah, I think of like even investing too. Like the stock market doesn't always go up. Your bank account doesn't always grow. Like there's times where things get tight, and things get thin. But when you zoom out and you look at it with the right perspective, you got to enjoy or recognize the lows to enjoy the highs.
Yeah, and realize that there's a longer term game at play here, right? It's not just
I mean, let's be real. Most people, when they decide they want to make a change, they're like, I want to do this for this vacation I have coming up. I want to do this so I can lose the 30 pounds. I want to lose this so I look better. And instead of thinking about, the bigger picture, like this is a long game. It's all a long game. It's a never ending thing. And if you want to move well and be healthy and be the best version of yourself, it's going to come in seasons.
Yeah.
You can't be the best version at all times. You're going to have downs, you're going to have ups. And if you can strategically kind of navigate those things and plan for them, you can actually get better through the quote unquote down times or the off peak times.
Well, and you won't get to that like stage of burnout either, right? So if you're in a fat loss stage for a long time, one, your body's going to get burnt out. You're mentally going to get burnt out and you're going to stall, and then you're going to not see progress or go backwards, right? And again, that relates to like so many other categories.
Yeah, you could talk about the same thing for muscle gain. You could talk about the same thing for energy. Like you mentioned, peak performance.
Yeah.
You can't have all of these things at the same time from the same program forever.
Everything has a season.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Training has a season. Sports have seasons. Businesses have seasons. Marriages have seasons. Parenting has seasons. And none of them are going to be on the same schedule at the same time throughout, like, let's say the year. Right?
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to what I mentioned just a minute ago. It's hard to understand that if you're always focused on forward progress and, staying on the grind and not really being able to pivot or recognize or even be aware of the opportunity to shift in season, out of season, preseason, postseason. So I think it's important to kind of navigate, because people aren't going to be able to relate to the athlete side of it so much, what those different seasons might look like, right? If you're a new parent, for example.
Yeah.
We have a coach on staff who's about to welcome their first child into the world, and we've been talking about how the sleep's going to change. Like those first 2 years, the kid's not sleeping through the night.
Well, no, and you still have to go about your day and do all these other things, and you're running on low sleep, so you're kind of in this survival mode of you're going to be tired for a while until sleep starts to regulate for your young child.
So winning in that environment is just staying consistent and being able to do what you can with what energy you have, because you are spread thin. Your recovery is going to be lower. You're not going to be able to optimize.
And that's a season. The baby will eventually start sleeping more regularly or longer stints, thus you will too. But they won't for a while. And so you just kind of have to be in the mindset of like, I know this is not forever. Yeah, it's really hard while I'm going through it, but
Especially when you have kids back to back, like you experienced probably about a 5 year stint where between pregnancy and
yeah,
the first child, and then, our kids are 2 years apart, and then the second child, and we can speak firsthand because I mean our boys are 2.5 and 4.5 right now. So we feel like we're like just out of the thick of that phase and
yeah,
that season of life.
yeah.
And
Even still, they're one of them is waking up every once in a while. Like we're
yeah,
not
but
having perfectly
it's
sleepless
not like it
weeks.
was for sure. And I think that in the middle of that, it really doesn't feel like that season's ever going to go away.
Yeah,
You're
for
like, oh
sure.
my gosh. And I think that's one of the things that helped us get through that, specifically you, because you breastfed and nursed, and
Yeah.
like in the middle of the night, like the kid didn't want anything to do with me.
Yeah,
Like
for
I
sure.
can't, I can't sue them the same way.
Yeah.
So I do remember vividly because it was still so fresh from in our experience that there's a lot of nights and days and times where you're like, is this ever going to
So I said,
change?
like, you can tell yourself all day long, like, it's a season, but that doesn't make it any easier to go
Fact.
through that season. Like, it's still really hard to go through the season. You're tired, you're
I
exhausted.
mean, the same thing with growing a business. We
Yeah.
did that simultaneous to starting our family.
It's good choices
Great choice. I might as well go off the deep end while you,
in both ways,
yeah, while you
business and
you
personal life.
can, and
But that takes a lot of mental
yep.
energy and bandwidth. You come home mentally exhausted, and then you're also like having to, be a present parent and whatnot, right?
Yeah, and in those situations, like there's been a lot of sacrifice for training volume. Like before we had a business, I had more time to train. I was able to really like push myself and work out as often or long as I want to. But now, you add in these other responsibilities and the fact that the business doesn't grow unless you grow and you lead the charge on things. And structure was really important. Like I had to put enough structure around things so I was more efficient
Yeah.
with the time that I had because I didn't have just as much time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and like it's like if you have an event that you're training for, usually you have a build up period to the event. You're not training for the
Hmm.
event for 12 months necessarily, but you are for at least 3 to 4 months really in like a heavy training period.
Yeah, and if you're doing something that's specific, you have to do specific training. So some of the things maybe that you enjoy doing more of that aren't necessarily your biggest limiting factor for performance now take a back seat
For
because the
sure.
priority has to be what really directly impacts your outcome. If
Yeah.
you want to train seriously for something or compete,
Yeah.
and competing doesn't have to mean going out to win the whole thing. It's competing with yourself to do the
To
best that
do the
you
best that
can.
you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Recovery from an injury, same scenario. I've
Yeah.
had multiple knee surgeries and more injuries than I can count from just years of doing hard things on my body. And that's a whole mental thing too. But those are seasons. They're periods of time where you have to really focus on
Recovery
recovery,
and let your body get recovered and not try to push yourself past a point where you either injure yourself more or just never fully get recovered.
Yeah, I have
Right.
another example. I had conversations with people about this a lot when things pick up at work or things change at work. Like, hey, I just had a conversation with someone this week about how I went from working nights to now working days, and my schedule has changed, and I'm trying to get my life on track, and it's been stressful, and pay here, and time here, and commitments there, and
Yeah.
there's going to be seasons, right? And I think that's the thing is like it goes back to awareness of what season you're in. You have to be very conscious and reflective on what's possible for you so you
Yeah.
don't set these expectations that aren't realistic for the season that you're currently in.
Yeah, for sure. Like, for example, I was like, I'm going to do this half marathon, and that was going to require me to run more and do more training than I was previously. I needed to recover to handle that. So I needed to make sure I was able to sleep. I wouldn't have been able to recover and handle that training load if it were a year ago and my youngest was not sleeping through the night anymore
Yeah,
or yet. I mean,
yeah.
so like there's a season where I was like, okay, I can do this because I will be able to sleep a little bit more consistently so I can handle the training load required for this event that I'm training for.
Yep.
But like I would not have been able to do that a year or two ago because of just other things in my life that were going to hinder my ability to see the progress that I wanted.
You just have to be fair with yourself.
Yeah.
You can't set these expectations that you're going to go out and really crush it and accomplish this and do this and do that.
And spend a lot of time on it,
Hmm.
right?
And energy and
Yeah.
whatever else is required.
Yeah.
If you aren't aware of what's realistic or real with yourself about that, it makes it really difficult because then all of a sudden you're in this loop of setting expectations that aren't even really potentially possible for
Based off
you
of the
to
season that
do
you're
based off of
in.
the season you're in. And then it creates this whole mental health and negative stress loop that it's like, well, I wasn't able to do this. I can't do that. I'm not able to follow this. Now all of a sudden there's a lot of negative energy around something that you're coming up short on, but you never really even set yourself up for success in the first place because you tried to do something that was not aligned with the season that you're in.
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, to sum that up is awareness in what season you're in and where you're able to put your energy
Yeah.
at any given
An
time.
easy example for me, because I'm a football guy, and always have, like, it's the sport that I was into and the
Hmm.
thing that I'm still the biggest fan of because of what the game has taught me. And I think it's interesting because it's carried into my adult life even long after I've been done playing. But from when I was, gosh, in fourth or fifth grade is when I started playing like tackle football and then played all the way through 22-ish years old.
Yeah.
Served for like 8 years of my late childhood into my early adulthood. It was every summer was preseason,
Yeah.
and we're doing conditioning and skill work and prep work. Every fall was in season. Every winter was postseason. Every spring was off season. And a lot of athletes understand that. You could use the same analogy for basketball, baseball,
Every sport has
every
an
sport,
on
right?
season and a postseason, an off season and a preseason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the off season, the goal was always build strength, add muscle mass, get
Yeah.
my weaknesses addressed so I could really build up like my base level of resilience and really lower the pressure to perform, but improve the capacity to adapt and really get my body prepared for what was getting ready to come. And just
Hmm.
the off season is where you make the most gains. Like that's where you put in the work. That's
You're
where you make the
building
change.
strength,
Is
you're
your
working on your agility, your
for
speed work, all the things that are going to make you be able to perform when the time it
for
comes.
sure.
Yeah.
And then when you shift into preseason, it's more about, am I conditioned and prepared to do the specific work required for this specific skill or sport or whatever the demand is?
Yeah.
You got to sharpen your skills. You got to get your reps in. You got to do things that are more quote unquote game like
Hmm.
and really start ramping intensity so that you're prepared to really get after it when the competition time comes.
Yeah. And then in season,
Yep.
you're working on maintaining that capacity and ability to perform. You're not necessarily building or working on a bunch of skill work necessarily,
Hmm.
right? I mean, you're just maintaining the capacity to perform.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to be able to be in a position to handle the beating of the season,
Yeah, recovering between games or, whatever it is.
staying fresh.
Yeah.
And then after the season, just kind of like taking the chance to step back mentally and physically and just like let your body come back down from the high of all of the pressure to perform and
Yeah.
the time where things were more intense and you were under the lights or whatever the scenario might be, you know.
Yeah.
But it's also a good time to reflect, right? Like what worked during the season, what didn't work during the season, and it gives you a chance to reset. And I think that this is the thing that most people forget to integrate into their routine, whether you are competing in something or your competition is becoming the best and healthiest version of yourself.
Yeah.
You have to take the time to down regulate. You can't always be on. You have to be able to intentionally slow down to put yourself in the position to be more aware, to be able to reflect, to learn from the things that you could have done better so that you can transition back into that off season period with intentional focus on how you can go to the next level.
Yeah.
But if you don't ever have these seasons, even if you're not an athlete, and we'll talk all about the different scenarios of life and how you can apply this, it makes it really hard. And I think that's why a lot of people, they're always signing up for the next race.
Yeah.
You know, I had this conversation with a client recently too. She's like, man, how do you stay in this for the long term without beating yourself up? And I used this analogy.
Yeah, I think that's a very common thing to do is you finish one race and then you sign up for the next one. So then you're like, okay, in 5 more weeks, I've got this next race. And then when you're done with that one, you're like, when's the next one? And you never have that like time to one, let your like nervous system decompress from the stimulus and the high intensity training or whatever it is. But it's important to have a reflection period after a season of go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
And this relates to like, I mean, kids in school or parents who have kids in school, the school year is like go, go, go. You got events, you got things, you got activities. And then summer is like, cool, we get to take a break from all of that for a
Hmm.
little bit. The kids get a mental break from the education, the school system, and you get to just like go do some fun things and have just like some downtime, and then it picks back up again. So that's just like a real life
Yeah, and that's the
regular
tough part
thing
about
to
being an adult. If, say you're somebody who does or doesn't have kids, like you don't get a summer break.
I know it's so funny. Ever since I've gotten out of school, it took a long time to get used to thinking about life not in like semesters,
Hmm.
like, spring semester, fall semester, and times of year. Obviously, we have children that are going to be in school in the next few years, and so we'll get back on that routine. But when
Yeah.
you're just an adult and you don't have kids and you're not really living life by like the school year, it was a really interesting adjustment after you're done with school to like not think about life in that way.
Well, I think that's why vacations are so important and planning time to
Yeah.
get away, even if you can't financially afford to go do something really expensive and sexy and
Yeah.
fancy. It's like just planning downtime in general is super important.
Yeah.
And that's not something that gets celebrated. I actually talked to you about this recently. I saw something that was just talking about how, especially people who are higher performers, really have this sense of guilt associated with downtime and rest. And that's something I'm actively working on, even myself, where I've associated productivity with reward and I've associated productivity with worth and value.
Yeah.
And it's really hard when society celebrates all of the accomplishments of making more money, having more fitness, having more materialistic success and social status. And then all of a sudden you're like burn out because you're
Yeah.
chasing the next thing.
You're just go, go, go all the time without any downtime to reflect, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that's the biggest, I think, takeaway is you shouldn't be go, go, go 24/7. You need to find time to reflect, down regulate, reassess, evaluate, and then pick it back up again
Yeah.
in whatever manner that is.
And I think it would be valuable, like always, just to kind of share some of the different seasons we've gone through
Hmm.
and some of the changes. It's funny, I told you I'd had a conversation with your dad about how he had said there's like 6 seasons of life that he had kind of come up with. And
Yeah.
one of them was like, your childhood,
Your early
your early
childhood.
childhood, I mean, 0 to 18. And then
Yeah.
you have like your early adulthood before you really settle down. And stereotypical thing is to like get married and have kids. And then you have your third phase where you're like a parent and you're
Yeah.
going through the years of raising children and trying to navigate all the things that go with that. And then you have like your kids become empty nesters and they're
You become
starting,
empty
or sorry, you
nesters.
become empty nesters and your
Yeah.
kids start to like, start their own
They go
lives.
get
And
married, they
they go
start
get
having
married. I think that's
kids.
like what 4 or 5 phases there, and then you
Yeah.
have the phase where your kids become adults and they have kids, and
Yeah.
then kind of the final phases of like the later life,
Yeah.
and it was an interesting perspective because him and I just had a
Well, and
conversation.
he's in like the fifth, sixth, like with
Yeah,
his
I think that
age
was what
and
came up about it. We had
where
had
he's
a
at.
deep conversation driving around doing some stuff. This is probably a year or two ago, and one of the things he'd really shared is just his reflection on that about how, I'm proud of you guys in the phase of life you're in. This is kind of how I'm looking at where I'm at and why I
Yeah.
want to do what I'm doing and how I make my own decisions based on where we're at. And it's just really interesting, right? And
Yeah.
as we thought about this topic, I was like, man, it's crazy to look back at the different phases specific to fitness that we've gone through.
Yeah. Because this is a fitness and health, you know, genre of,
Platform and
yeah,
yeah,
platform
opportunity
of,
for us to share, right?
yeah, yeah.
So when I look back at it, I think, okay, I grew up playing sports, but like my defining sports moment would have been having the opportunity to play college football
Hmm.
and how those structured seasons, like we talked about, were really baked into things.
Yeah.
I got into jiu-jitsu and judo for about 5 to 6 years post college and competed in that. Nothing crazy. Uh,
Just did some tournaments
but
and
did a
things
couple
here and
local
there.
tournaments
Yeah.
and one larger one, and definitely different demands and different training, and you ramp things up differently in an environment like that. But
Yeah.
I wasn't competing year round all the time.
Yeah.
And then I think, gosh, it would have been 2 years ago, almost exactly now, when I did the ultra marathon,
Hmm.
and that was a whole thing, kind of like what you had talked about, where we had two very young kids, and we were in the middle of starting the business. And had I known that we would have had to move the gym when I signed up for that, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Well, yeah, of course.
But I'm glad I did, and it was a really good opportunity for me to use that for like mental health endurance.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of sacrifice required for that. Spend half a day on Sunday being just completely gone while you're at
Yeah.
home with two young kids, and
Yep. You're just running the trails and just having time on your
yep.
feet to build up your endurance
But I
for
couldn't
it.
I couldn't do that all the time forever with all the
No.
other things that we have in the seasons that we're going through collectively. And
Yeah.
we did our first High Rocks last fall, just finished our second High Rocks recently, and
Yeah.
the seasons of training for that. And I think it's been,
Because that's a high intensity training.
yep,
You're working at a super high heart rate for an hour long, and
yep,
you have to build up
an hour to 2 hours long.
your body's
Yeah,
ability to handle that.
yeah,
And so building yourself up at these high intensity weeks of just lots of volume and high intensity is
yeah,
you can't be doing that forever.
yeah.
You got to take breaks from that.
Well, I think that's what I'm most excited about, and why this felt like such a compelling and easy topic for us to talk about is,
Yeah.
we're entering our off season right now from that, and have had some different things which you can dive into more. But you've had your own experience with these things too. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I played college volleyball, and when that season of my athletic career was done, I got into bodybuilding, and that alone has its own seasons. Like you have to get super lean to get on stage and, show your body composition, and you can't be that lean 24/7. Like
which I think a lot of people misunderstand.
that nobody's walking around that stage lean all the time. They're building themselves up to it, and then they work themselves out of it. They're
Hmm.
not just like that lean all the time. It's a phase. Um, and then I did, like I kind of mentioned earlier, like I built myself up to this half marathon, and then we had that second high rocks again, and had to just like increase intensity while keeping the endurance base there. And so that's been a lot of I've been on like a training plan for what, like 6, 7 months now. So I'm excited we are going into an off season right now with our just fitness in general. And obviously we have, goals to continue doing things, but we're not like, we don't have a specific event on the radar in the next like couple months. So we can just kind of down regulate, let our nervous systems like come down from all of the training that we've been doing to just continue to build muscle and keep our endurance and get better and get faster without having the pressure of like I've got a race in 2 weeks that I need to be ready for,
Yeah. What's funny is when I was in college and doing more structured athletic stuff, I really didn't love the off-season training.
because it's not as fun, it's not as sexy. You're not playing the game in front of the crowds and doing the stuff. You're just doing the workouts
Yeah.
and recovering and going to school. I
Yeah.
mean, like it's not the sexy part.
Yeah, but I say that because now I've felt an overwhelming sense of relief and excitement about where we're at during this reflection period.
Hmm.
Just for context, our first High Rocks, we were not prepared for it the way that we needed to. Fueling, awareness, endurance, collectively, we just did not
Yeah.
know what we were getting ourselves into. Like anything, the first time you try it, it's going to be
Yeah, for
a
sure.
whole
You learn
experience.
a lot.
Yeah. And then the second one, we're like, all right, let's go out and really get after it. And I think we came in within like 2 minutes of the time that we were really aiming for.
Yeah.
And afterwards, like the immediate 48 hour period afterwards, you're like, where could I have done better? Where could I
Yeah,
have
you're
juiced a
thinking
little bit
about
more?
every little thing of how you could have improved. Yeah.
But after we got out of that initial like early post race mindset, I felt really relieved and just like less stressed and excited about, man, I'm really looking forward to just like training to train to be generally better, to
Yeah.
focus on the things that I'm not as good on, to, you know, not have pressure to perform, but have the opportunity to really just improve in general.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a good place to be. And I do think that the other side of that is equally as important. So even if you are someone who's like, yeah, that's always what I do. I only train to feel better and improve my base. I do think there's value in going out and really pushing your limits and training for something specific and finding that thing that gets you out of your comfort zone and gives you a chance to feel like an athlete again, you know?
Well, and this is the Misogi.
Yeah.
Um,
Comfort crisis.
the comfort crisis, the year defining event, your Misogi,
Hmm.
right? But like, not only is it because it's good to do challenging things, but it's good for your mental health too, to like challenge yourself in a way of something that you're uncomfortable with. Like, it's not just because of the physicality of doing the event, it's the entire mental side that's also associated with it, right?
Yeah, when you can go through and do something that's difficult and it's something that makes you nervous and anxious about, and you get on the other side of that and you complete it, the sense of accomplishment and confidence that you get from that is overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like the feeling that I had when I finished that ultra marathon was unmatched to almost anything I've ever experienced.
Because it was hard. It was something totally out of your
13
comfort
hours,
zone.
40 miles in the mountains,
Yeah.
just the craziest thing I could have thought of at the moment. And I'm like, I'm a meathead.
Yeah.
Like I don't run. What is this?
Yeah.
I'd never done anything more than a 10K before that, and
Hmm.
it was just so cool to be able to say I did that. And I think a lot of times whenever it was weird for me to even tell people about it for a while because I felt like,
An imposter, like imposter
yeah, it
syndrome,
felt
right?
strange.
Doing
Like
something that's
I ran
out
an
of
ultra
your,
marathon. They're like, I was like, I'd always downplay it, like, oh well, I didn't run the whole thing. I'm like, no, but I finished it, and
yeah.
I should be proud of that. And no, I didn't think I could do it, but that's why I went out and did it. It's so I could
Hmm.
prove to myself that I can do whatever I want. I may
Hmm.
not go out and be the best in the world at it, but shit, who's going to be the best at something the first time they try it?
Yeah.
Very few people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what separates people who are successful in every area of their life is people who are willing to get out of their comfort zone, do things that challenge them, and be able to look back on the other side of it and be really proud of the things that they did that maybe they weren't sure they could do beforehand.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to continue to challenge yourself as you age. Like it's those types of things aren't just for people in their 20s or even 30s. Like you can go do ultras if you're 50. Like we
A lot of
saw
the ultra endurance athletes are in
are
their 40s and 50s
yeah,
because they've been building this endurance over years and
years.
decades,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it doesn't matter where you start. I think that you got to be smart about not doing something silly that's going to get you hurt.
Well,
You
that's why you
can't
have
do,
to build yourself up to any
correct.
given event,
So I'm
right?
not going to say like anybody can do anything. Like I'm not going to play
Well,
for an
train
NFL team.
appropriately, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to play for an NFL team. I'm not going to be in the NBA. Like you can, but I can go out and I could compete in some type of like sports event or team sports or whatever it
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah.
I'm not going to step in day one. Not to say that that's not obvious, but
Yeah.
just kind of, navigating some of the nuance there.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think will help people too is finding a way to look at this in more of a structured and organized way to apply it.
Yeah.
The terminology for programming and periodization is broken down into macrocycles, mesocycles, and microcycles.
And again, this programming and periodization obviously is in association with like strength training, but you could think about this in other terms as well.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, it could also be applied to any type of training in general.
Yeah.
It's just really more or less understanding the bigger picture of time and seasons. So I
Yeah.
would say that it's not just applicable for one thing, but a macro cycle is the big picture. It's the year.
Yeah.
So
Where do you want to be a year from now?
for sure, and I don't think many people think that far ahead.
Yeah.
Most are like, where do I want to be 90 days from now or 6 weeks from now? And it's like,
Yeah.
let's zoom out a little bit. Let's begin with the end in mind
Yeah.
because a year is going to come. And if you do the right thing to set yourself up for the year, that heavily dictates what makes the most sense over the next 90 days or the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So think about macro cycles as 12 months, 1 year. And maybe the focus is like, okay, I want to, do a race in one portion of the year. I want to do a hike in another portion of the year. Like you can have multiple things that you accomplish in a macro cycle.
Yeah.
But if you can look at that 12-month window and say, okay, 9 months from now, I want to do this, and 6 months from now, I want to do this.
It's reverse engineering, right?
Correct.
So you've got the goals that you want to hit throughout the year. Now, how do we
Break that down into
break that down into
mesocycles,
mesocycles, which is usually like a
a
four to,
season.
yeah, like a 4 to 12 week stint of time that you're maybe focused or training on this thing for this event at this time.
Yep. So we do 4-week blocks with our group programming here.
Hmm.
And for any semi-private or one-on-one clients, we do typically like 8 to 12 week blocks because we can be more specific. But you can't just do 12 months straight of the same thing.
Yeah.
Even if your goal is to generally improve your overall strength, and you have like one specific goal, how you accomplish and achieve that needs to be broken up into seasons of building for that. So maybe, if you have a singular goal just to really get as strong as you possibly can, you can't just progressively build the exact same way in a linear fashion for 12 months straight.
Yeah.
I might need to focus on building my muscular endurance for 8 to 12
So you do a
weeks.
hypertrophy phase for a little bit,
Yep.
and then you would go do a power
Yep.
phase and then a strength phase.
And you can
Yeah.
undulate and change. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of different ways to be able to bring that to life.
Yeah.
But that's another thing around like body composition. You can't just be in a fat loss phase and expect linear progress for 12 months straight. You have to break that down and say, okay, I'm going to really diet strategically and train strategically to maximize my fat loss for the next, I don't know, call it 8 weeks to 12 weeks because I got this trip coming up
Mm-hmm.
and I want to look good and I want to feel really good and I want to be a little lighter. Like, you can't do that at the same time that you're also preparing for a race.
Yes, correct.
Like, I could have been 10 pounds lighter going to this last High Rocks. It would have been ideal for me.
Yeah.
But the time frame that I had ahead of me was going to be
To ramp up your training and be able to handle the needs for that while also trying to diet and lose the 10 pounds, they don't go together
no,
in that short of a time frame.
correct. Because it would have put me in a position where I wouldn't have recovered the same,
Mm-hmm.
because I wouldn't have had the same nutrient replenishment.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have been able to allow my body to be pushed because I didn't have enough fuel because I'm trying to diet down and change the way my body is using the stored energy that I have.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important to recognize that you can do the same things, but they have to be over a different time period.
Depending on what it is,
Depending
right?
on what
Every
it is.
situation is going to be unique and what your goal is and where you need to be and your time frame for it. Yeah.
Yep. So the whole focus is like do one thing really well instead of 5 things really half-assed
Okay.
or poorly.
Yeah.
And then the microcycle is the week ahead. It's like the execution. It's being able to really drill things down into the micro tasks and expectations that I have to start to see the rest of it come to life.
Yeah.
You have to have the big picture in mind.
Which is the macro,
You have to be able to break it down into seasons.
which is the mesocycle,
And then you have to be able to know, what do I need to do this week to get me one step closer to the next thing?
which is the microcycle, the now, the present, the
Yep.
immediate focus.
Yeah, so I think the macro is like the destination, the meso is like the phase of the journey, and the micro is like, here's what I got to do right now to make that start working.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and this, you kind of just said this, but like that's why people go into a phase where they're stalling with like their weight loss, or let's say they're trying to build muscle and you're like, okay, I've built a couple pounds in the last couple months, but I haven't done anything this month. Like nothing's happening. It's like, okay, well, maybe you need to switch up what you're doing because what
Mhm.
you're doing is no longer working. Your body's not adapting to the change anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, at some point, something has to be a priority, not everything.
Yeah.
So I think the discussion becomes like, what am I actually trying to focus on changing now? You have to be real with yourself. You have to ask the questions of what's the most important thing, and is what I'm doing actually reflecting the main thing? You got to keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't look different than where you were 6 months ago, you might want to reevaluate, because you can't just keep repeating the same process. When we worked in big box gyms, I saw this all the time. I worked at a big box gym for 7 years, and
Yeah.
I remember more than a handful of people that did the same thing every week, every month, every year for years on end. And it's no wonder that you look and feel and perform the same ways. You didn't have a structure and a system and these macro and meso and micro cycles to really get strategic around getting the most out of the time and energy you spent doing it, you know?
Yeah. And honestly, unless you're in like a maintenance phase, right? I mean, would that be a challenge to having to be in macro, meso, and micro cycles if you are just looking to just manage and maintain your current state and health?
It's a great question and a great perspective, but you can't maintain everything at once.
Well, for sure. But you could generally maintain your health and your muscle or your current body fat percentage or whatever,
And I think
right?
that's a season of maintaining.
Yeah.
But if you're never working to actively improve something,
Yeah.
then it makes it a lot harder to maintain everything.
Yeah.
It's like the same idea with the whole 6 steps for success. Like, you can't simultaneously zero in on one or more than like two
A
to three
couple.
aspects.
Yeah.
So maybe this season I'm really focused on maintaining or elevating the bar for my strength and muscular endurance. And then I'm taking a break off of some of these other things, but I'm still doing the bare minimum necessity.
Yeah.
So that may look like you go from 3 days a week of running to 2 days a week or 1 day a week of running, just to kind of maintain that piece so that you can go in and build more time doing strength training
Yeah.
and
Other aspects
other
of,
aspects of fitness. And it doesn't mean that you can't still keep the same, because I don't want somebody who trains with us to listen to this and think like, well, I've been doing 3 days a week of strength training with you guys for 2 years. And,
yeah, but our programming is adapting
but
and
that's the whole point,
changing.
is the
Yeah.
programming is pivoting and adapting and changing.
Yeah. So
So,
yes, you're doing the same classes or the same times all the time, but what you're doing in those classes, the programming, the system that you're in is adapting as time goes
and that's the
on.
beauty of working with a coach, is a good coach will make sure that you're not staying stagnant, even though on your perspective, it doesn't look that much different.
Yeah.
But the little things that are happening behind the scenes, you come in and one day and your shoulder's messed up because you slept wrong, or you threw it out playing, I don't know, baseball with your kid.
Yeah.
And you have someone able to adapt and navigate the ability to help you recover and pivot without feeling like you're getting off track. From your perspective, that's maintaining.
Yeah.
From their perspective, that's recovering. That's a micro cycle of us getting your joint right,
Yeah.
so we can get back on track with the mesocycle and the bigger picture of you being ready for this big hike you're taking next year,
Yeah.
or whatever it might be. I think the thing that I would say, just to cap that off, is everybody should have one thing that they're doing that really motivates them to stay consistent every year.
Yeah.
Like the Misogi thing,
Yeah.
going back to that, like if you
Having
don't have a year
something that you're
defining
training
event,
for.
and it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but it might be like, my year defining event is going to be looking really good on the beach in Florida or Italy
Yeah.
or whatever,
Or
right?
doing a pull up for the first time ever in your
Correct.
life, or running your first 5K,
Yes.
or whatever, right? It
Whatever it
doesn't
might
have to
be.
be this massive event, but it's just something that gives you something to kind of pine for
Yep.
and be working for.
Yep.
I was gonna say, so what this looks like for just someone who is a busy parent, right? Let's say the season that they're in now is they're just like, I just got to show up and get some consistency in coming to the gym in general. They're like, I don't have the capacity to have this like insane goal of, gaining 5 pounds of muscle and dropping 20 pounds of fat right now. I just need to get to the gym on a regular basis. That's
Yeah.
like phase one of just consistency.
Yeah. The first season is showing up.
Yeah. Then you go into, okay, now that I'm like consistently coming and showing up, now I do want to like improve my strength and kind of get into a rhythm of finding something to kind of build, right? Next season would be, okay, maybe there's a specific event I have in mind, or something that I want to kind of specifically train for after I've been regularly training for a little bit, building my strength. Now I've got an event that I want to go for. After the event happens, the next season would be like, okay, my career has significantly increased in the demands and my stress. So I just need to work on maintaining my current level of fitness while I'm not in a phase to put a ton of energy into like training for an event or building right now. I just need to manage and maintain.
Biggest mistake people make when you're looking at the specific demographic of people is when things get difficult, instead of shifting seasons, they get the urge to stop.
Yeah. They're like, oh, I'll come back in 2 months after my kids go back to school because I got to be home with them all summer. Like, whatever.
It's like, well, let's just pivot and change what this season looks like.
Yeah. Not totally stop.
That's why we start most people with like a 90-day, 12-week, 3-month, however you want to chop it up program, because it's a season. It's a mesocycle. It gives us a chance to really look at helping you work through whatever phase you're in, so that you can be in a position to where when we do a goal review at 11 weeks in, we can reevaluate, what's this next season look like for you?
Yeah. What
How
do
are
the next
things
couple
changing?
months look like?
Yeah, let's navigate that. And we do goal reviews with clients every 90 days for this exact reason, because people's lives change in seasons,
Yeah.
regardless of what your life looks like. And if it doesn't change that much, like there are probably things that make sense to navigate and pivot and change on, just so things don't get stale and that you
Yeah.
stay fresh.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this already with like fat loss clients too, but it's establishing the baseline of being brilliant at the basics, right? The foundational habits, getting you into a routine to where you're doing enough of the right things that your body will naturally start to lose fat, and that you can be in a deficit and your body can handle the stress of weight loss. Then getting into more of a maintenance phase and being able to keep the weight off and learn how to adapt life without it. Once again, a mistake there is, I've lost the weight, I'm good to go. Let's just either keep going and get too greedy about it, or forget that there is a transition to maintenance. This whole set point theory we've talked about in the past,
Yeah.
like your body's got to take time to catch up and re-regulate at your new
And
normal.
adapt. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you want to keep it off long term, building muscle, building strength. Those things are going to help create a better foundation for you to be able to maintain that progress you've made. So there's a lot of different variations.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any other examples or.
Well, I mean, just like we've talked about, like the football person or a high rocks athlete, because,
Yep.
obviously we've been doing high rocks, and, you have an off season where you're building muscle and building your endurance. And then preseason comes up because your race is in 12 weeks or something like that. You're building your ability to handle that. And then you have competition time. So you're like performing. And then you have a postseason where you're like recovering and reflecting. So it's
Yeah.
the same different little seasons for whatever event that you're thinking of: fat loss, a busy parent, a career driven person, an
Yeah.
athlete. Yeah.
And even if it's not something that's associated with those things, like everybody has work, relationship, a lot of people have parenting,
Yeah.
everybody has personal growth seasons, and like you can't be in launch my business mode forever as an entrepreneur or chase my career ladder mode forever. At some point, you've got to like take a freaking breather
Yeah.
and pivot to a different season.
Yeah.
We've been married for what is it, coming up on 7 years this fall.
Yeah.
And like we've had different seasons and where
Yeah.
we've been able to invest more or less into our relationship
Yeah. Well,
based on other things we have going on.
yeah, for sure. Parenting, growing a business,
Yep.
all those things take your time and your energy. And maybe we haven't gone on as many date nights or, put as much energy into that because we've had to have our energy in a lot of other places.
Yeah.
But that's just a season that we were like, look, we're in the thick of this right now. This needs our attention. So we'll have to put a little bit more energy here or
Yeah. And
there.
the whole premise of the podcast is helping share ideas and beliefs and conversations for people who want to improve and see personal growth. And I think it's important to remind you that whether it's a physical goal or a mental goal
Yeah.
or whatever context it is, like pressure and recovery work the same way in every context. You
Yeah.
got to be able to apply pressure, but you can't always be applying pressure. You have to sometimes reel back so you can recharge to apply pressure again. You got to look at things in sprints
Yeah.
and in seasons and everything that we had talked about.
Yeah. So look at your year, decide where you need to have certain phases of training or energy or focus, and think about that 1 week, 1 day at a time from there.
Yeah, which will require you to slow down. So if you're somebody that's going, 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 you're going to have to press stop, and you'll actually get further along by slowing down to get strategic around how and where you should be speeding
Can
back
help
up.
you plan a little bit more like strategically or organized and where you're going. So you're not just going without an end goal in mind or a vision for where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know when to build, when to push, when to perform, when
Yeah.
to recover. You got to be strategic about these things if you want to really get the most out of it and be able to do that over the long haul, because you can't just press the gas forever and expect yourself to.
Or you'll get burnt out,
Yep.
which everybody has gone through a phase of burnout before, because you get to that point where you're just like, okay,
Yeah.
that was a lot,
Yeah.
without having a plan.
But if you practice enough awareness around it, it gives you an opportunity to proactively get ahead of the burnout. So as soon as you start to feel some of those things, you can plan for the chance to down-regulate, reset, refocus, and get back after
Kind
it.
of like the light at the end of the tunnel. You're like,
Mhm.
I am in the thick of it right now, but I know once I get to here, I'll have a mental or physical break for a little bit before things can pick back up again.
Yeah.
Just gives you something to look forward to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that helps. You may not be an athlete, but you can think like one. The secret to long-term success is training in seasons. We'll catch you guys next week.
This episode of the Higher Form podcast is powered by Avexia Health and Performance, your home for smart training, simple nutrition, and real accountability. Built to help you look, feel, and perform your best. Whether you're just getting started or chasing your next level, visit avexiakc.com to learn more and start building your higher form today.